Welcome to my next video on reverse cloud migration. Why we need to move away from public cloud. Many organizations adopted cloud strategy for the past 5 years and developed their application to adapt to cloud and even migrated their on-premises applications and data to cloud. But quite recently, there is a growing trend to move back to on-premises solution due to cost, performance, and security consideration. An expert went on to say they try to get everything in the cloud and it doesn't quite meet their expectation and they end up dragging things back in. Let's see what is reverse cloud migration. Reverse cloud migration, also called as cloud repatriation, where companies moving their applications and data from the cloud service providers to customers' own infrastructure at on premises or more of a private cloud infrastructure which is co-owned by the customers. Let us understand the key drivers for this movement from the public cloud to the private or own infrastructure environment. Why it is? The first point is related to skills, security, cost, which is always not predictable. The number one, the skills required for cloud apps development, migration, maintenance is not predictable due to change in the technology stack and skill expertise. Many organizations feels that their teams may not know how to manage cloud workloads. Number three, how many organizations administratives department which include IT administrator lack personalized support from cloud service provider and the lack of freedom to perform routine configuration and testing without worrying about the associated cost. This leads to the next point. It is not cheaper as expected even for a longer term. You know, recruiting cloud engineers and architect is expensive, adding to the cost. Many organizations adopted cloud with a promise on saving millions of dollars as we go. But the reality is that the organization need to spend considerable amount of money in refactoring of the code or redesign the application architecture. Who will account for this additional spend? Capacity planning accomplished at on-premises infrastructure with the help of architects, designers, and support team. It is not free with respect to cloud service provider. You need to bring the same team what you use at on premises on the table while discussing capacity planning with the cloud service providers. Remember, your team is master in capacity planning than anyone else who just participated in couple of calls and validates the data that you produce as part of filling the template. The bottom line is what you cannot see, what you cannot manage. This leads to the third point, even building a proof of concept is costlier. Unlike traditional on-premises solution, building a proof of concept in the cloud requires good amount of investment in terms of acquiring cloud resources, skilled personnels, deployment, and the testing of the proof of the concept. And the fourth point is pay per usage is just a theoretical and really it's an illusion. The cloud service provider offering additional services in addition to what was subscribed, the total cost of public cloud is rising because of additional services. With that, the cost of cloud services is no longer dropping at the rate as it was expected. Companies start realizing the fact that they spend far more than what they really anticipated. This leads to the next point, changes in the regulation. Changes in the regulations are constant and adapting to such changes required good amount of investment from the services industry and also cloud service provider need to do such changes in their side for all regulatory changes. Additional investments are required from company side for preparing reports from the data collected to comply with the regulatory body requirement. Building this report is just a kind of fresh development that requires additional manpower, additional support, cost, effort. Now, let's see the next item, that is physical control and cyber security. The reality is quite different. Let's take the physical control. Many customer feels that hybrid model is more suitable after complete migration of their landscape it into the cloud in order to have a physical control to core or sensitive application whatever they have. If you take cyber security, the reality is different. Though cloud service provider assures of cyber security of customer application and data, but the reality is quite different. Customer owns certain responsibility with respect to security, which means the customer need to continue the cybersecurity team after cloud migration, at least a lean team. And also they should have to take care of certain security aspect in their application design and development. It's not a super plate. That was the feeling for the many security experts say while taking about the firewall. Though cloud service provider says that they have a firewall to take care of customer application, but it is not the same plate as customer used to have at on premises in terms of trustworthy customization response to incidents. We trust the cloud service providers, but we cannot walk into the cloud service provider data centers to check to do a full risk assessment. That is always not possible. Many organizations consider infrastructure service as a best option to have a better control, security, but that is leading to lots of work for them in terms of patching and data responsibilities. That is more or less having a similar workload when they have their infrastructure at on premises. This leads to the next point, that is 7 administration anomalies under vendor lock-in. Under administrative anomalies, organization which opted for multi-cloud deployment model with multiple cloud service providers facing issues in terms of setting up role-based access control which varies between cloud service provider. Another issue is that administrators and procurement executives get limited visibility on the granularity of the consumption usage, and so approving an invoice is a challenge for them. If you take vendor lock-in, customers are forced to continue using a product or service regardless of quality because switching away from that product or service is not at all practical. To transfer a business away from one of its current cloud service provider, but it is not possible to do so due to projected cost, duration, or complexity in switching. So these are the things which impact the cloud migration as well as reward. This leads to reversed cloud migration back it into the on premises. So what should we do before we migrate things it into the cloud? Number one, to do a proper due diligence and homework properly before adopting to cloud. Number two, analyze cloud workload in detail to control the cost, down the resources when not in use, and spin up or down on need basis. If required, automate those tasks. Number three, do proper planning on migration. Understand how much work was required or is going to be required to move on-premises workload it into the cloud. Number four, do not move apps or data where you want to have a greater control over the computing environment. Decide this upfront. Number five, do not plan for large scale year-round deployment that leads lots of effort, manpower, and cost. Number six, design and develop your application in the cloud. Thereby, there is no vendor lock-in. I mean, don't look into the services or resources which lead to vendor lock-in. And if you want to move from one service provider to another service provider, then you are finished. Number seven, prioritize technical architecture considerations for achieving infrastructure efficiency. And these are the things you have to consider before migrating your applications or data to the cloud. The list is not the end. There are many things. These are the top priority items that you should have to consider. Now, what should we do after migrating into the cloud? Assume you made a decision to move away from the public cloud to your on premises. Or before doing reverse migration, what are the things that you should have to do? Number one, do proper capacity planning for the on premises setup because you might have used abundant amount of resources at public cloud, and you need to have similar kind of infra environment at on premises in order to handle reverse migration. Number two, work on detailed architecture and design implementation to move application landscape to on premises. Number three, ensure we have required software licenses for the services or resources offered by the cloud service provider at on premises. Number four, consider downtime impacts before implementing reverse migration. Since end users are bound to be affected, it is necessary to plan for downtime and to communicate planned outages in advance for them to minimize the business impact of the migration. Number five, work on security aspects and the performance factors while planning for on premises migration. With that, the bottom line is simple. To start, every cloud service provided they dispatch monthly charges which looks attractive, that is very initial stage. As we go along, the options are limited if the provider starts charging you more for the same services which are offered by them. This triggers many customers looking for avenues which reduces the cost. So the bottom line is the expectation from many customer is that there should not be lots of zeros at the end of their monthly bill. Although the cloud spending will be increasing over the next few years, it is suggested to devise your cloud adaptation strategy very carefully. And I hope this video is helpful to you. If you like that video, please subscribe to get update on the technology updates time to time from me. Thank you for watching this video once again. Stay safe and bye.